Gentlemen, you made a huge mistake.
Yes, people, yes, people, yes, people. Welcome back to the We Talk Football podcast. What a couple of days it's been. Now, I'm going to open with a statement from the Super League. So it's despite the announced departure of the English clubs, forced to take such decisions due to the pressure put on them, we are convinced our proposal is fully aligned with European law and regulations, as was demonstrated today by a court decision to protect the Super League from third-party actions. Given the current circumstances, we shall reconsider the most appropriate steps to reshape the project, always having in mind our goals of offering fans the best experience possible while enhancing solidarity payments for the entire football community. Now, the last couple of days have been a massive victory for football in terms of yesterday evening. As two, students of the game, massive fans of the sport, how are you feeling about football right now?
Oh, you go, Lou.
Well, I think it's obviously everyone's feeling quite good right now, but I think it's very important to remember that this is just like a seesaw effect. From my perspective, we still have a lot to do. It's amazing. Obviously, I was like everyone, shocked, dismayed. The gall, the gumption, the audacity. I think, everyone was just blown away by that hitting us on a Sunday night after a weekend of football. And the last 2 days have just been absolute madness. And that with the protests at Chelsea, Petr Cech remonstrating with the fans, and the fact that, it's all come out that literally within the space of 2-3 hours, everyone's done a UE. It's nice to see. It's nice to see the impact we've all had as a community. And I don't think we've ever seen the footballing community, as it were, I suppose more so online.
Unity, wasn't there?
Together. Yeah, there was unity. You sort of started to break that when you were popping off at us in the group chat yesterday. Deductions, fines, which is something that massively needs to come into play. And we were having a conversation about how complicated it's going to be now to potentially deduct these clubs' points, to fine these clubs. I think monetary sort of sanctions are probably going to be the best port of call.
Well, we'll jump into that.
Again,
later. We will jump into that.
Essentially, I'm feeling like this is a victory, not necessarily for football as a whole, but for the fans. So I suppose that just is what football is supposed to be about: community and, us.
It's certainly
moving forward from this.
It's certainly what the game was born out of. It's the fans, and it looked like yesterday fans took some of the power back. But Kwaku, give us your thoughts as well, mate.
Yeah, it was absolutely wild. The last 48 hours has been crazy. The fact that the Jose Mourinho thing has kind of been brushed under the carpet is crazy in itself.
Nobody cares.
That's a week worth of news in itself. But I think it was quite apropos that the day that Derek Chauvin got sentenced or got convicted of murder, as a result of protests from the people during the midst of the pandemic. And then it's happened on the same day that protests outside Stamford Bridge result in, or maybe this was, or the wheels were already in motion for it, but the protest definitely had a massive part in the Super League reneging and kind of retracting and the big six clubs coming back to the Premier League. It just shows how much power people have. And it shows that when people come together, the essence of life is people, is community, is a sense of belonging. And at Stamford Bridge, you didn't only see Chelsea fans there. You saw West Ham fans there. You saw Liverpool fans there. You saw Manchester United fans. And it was a sense of coming together in the face of injustice. And the Super League and the big six clubs can argue to their blue in the face that they did nothing wrong criminally. But when you get the governments involved saying they're going to come down with a legislation hammer to kind of punish these clubs because of what they've done to the fabric of the game, then kind of shows you the gravitas of what they were actually attempting to do. And like we said yesterday, it was a coup, that an unprecedented coup. It was a money grab at a point where the country and the world was on its knees, and it seems like poetic justice has come to an end. And it's come to an end on the day that Chelsea drew 0-0 with Brighton, which just highlights the competitiveness of football. Like, Brighton have no right to go to Stamford Bridge and get a draw with Chelsea. We have infinite finances. Our squad is so much deeper. There is no reason why a team like Brighton, who got promoted to the Premier League 4 or 5 years ago, should come to a team like Chelsea, who have been established for the last however many decades and get a result. But they did, because that's the beauty of football. It's competitive. And I feel like everything's come full circle. It's been a wild 48 days, but I'm looking forward to football returning back to normal. But like Lou touched on before I started, there does need to be heavy sanctions and heavy fines for these clubs that are involved, because it was treachery, it was treason.
I agree.
Treason.
I totally agree with you. Just to draw on what you were saying there, though, when you say football to return to normal, has the damage been done? Is the damage irreparable at this point?
I think football fans have very short memories. Well, I think everyone does in general. So I'm hoping that if we get this sort of independent review in, if the government need to impose some type of sort of cultural artifact law in order to effectively protect the sanctity of the Premier League, the FA Cup, the oldest trophy in world football, and that was almost, I mean, essentially ripped apart, like you were saying the other day, Quaker. The tapestry of football was somewhat being attacked and destroyed, and I think we can use this as an opportunity, fingers crossed, to move forward and actually make some proper changes. Obviously, I mean, I was reading an article earlier that said this is effectively, this is peacetime. They've retreated, but they're going to come back, and the tanks will be bigger. So we, as a footballing community, need to use this opportunity. Hopefully, the government use this opportunity in order to make, the traditions and the culture of it a lot safer from effectively bigwigs that are in it for greed and money.
Trying to capitalise on the game, yeah.
Yeah, we keep saying about how, like, it's not clubs, it's people. And as a Chelsea fan, we can speak about Roman Abramovich and how he made his money, but essentially, aside from all that, from a football fan's perspective, he's been an incredible owner for us. And this is, beyond the misstep. I appreciate that the turnaround was so quick, but the fact that they've had the audacity to go there is, quite disgraceful. And I feel everyone feels betrayed. Every football fan is, we really need to use this as an opportunity to try and move forward and make proper changes.
Okay. What about you, Quicks?
I feel like the changes are going to come. Obviously, Man City and Chelsea, in the midst of kind of the madness of yesterday, were painted out as the heroes. But let's not get it twisted. Chelsea Football Club, in terms of the hierarchy, in terms of the management, in terms of the executives, aren't the heroes in the situation. It's the fans, not just Chelsea fans, but football fans coming together and voicing their displeasure. The real heroes in this, despite my mild criticism of the company that he works for, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, these pundits that are kind of put their necks on the line and kind of voice their displeasure and off such a public forum, they're the heroes of this. People come together are the heroes. And I feel the change is imminent. I feel like with Roman Abramovich and with Sheikh Mansour and the Man City ownership group, they've come back with their tails between their legs, because from what we understand, they were kind of reluctant to join this because their whole thing is public perception. They're trying to change the public perception of maybe the Middle East and Man City's example, or in Chelsea's example, Roman Abramovich and Chelsea are trying to change perception of Chelsea Football Club, because we know we've been entrenched in horrible things in the past. And they've come back because they were reluctant to join the Super League thing in the first place. I feel like they're coming back with their tail between their legs, but things will carry on relatively normal at those clubs. You're going to see seismic shifts at Arsenal. You're going to see seismic shifts at Manchester United, which has already started with Ed Woodward. And you're going to see seismic shifts at Liverpool. Liverpool's going to be the biggest one of all of them, because the fans... Think about a club that have seen so much success in Liverpool in terms of the Premier League, the Champions League, the trophies that they've won under Jurgen Klopp, and there were still a contingent of fans that were screaming FSG out when they were winning trophies. Think about what that's going to be now. Think about how uncomfortable it's going to be for that Liverpool hierarchy to attend games at Anfield. Think about how, when in the midst of a pandemic, they tried to furlough staff. And as much as we talk about Liverpool and we have a disdain for Liverpool as a football club because of football tribalism, there is no doubt that they are different. There is things that operate different up there. They have a different sense of community when it comes to their football club. They have a real sense of ownership when it comes to that. And with a contingent of fans wanting the ownership out when they're in the midst of their most successful period in maybe 30 years, think about that now. A watch sponsor's already dropped out. They tried to trademark the name Liverpool. FSG are in massive trouble. And I think you're going to see it from clubs owned by American owners.
Yeah, I agree. Now, drawing on what you were saying there, what's the kind of, how do you see these clubs being punished? Do you think they should be punished?
They have to be. And again, like we were saying earlier, you can't punish them with a points deduction because it's a complicated political agenda anyway. Why these? I mean, all of these clubs have just tried to leave this league effectively, or I mean, basically a massive political posturing act against it in order to regain a little bit more control, potentially over fixtures, potentially over money rights, a whole mess of things. But it's not the players, it's the owners. And I don't think necessarily the players should be punished within their competitive sport as a result of a decision their owners made. Whether that affects bottom line or not is really irrelevant. What does affect bottom line is what they should be charged on in terms of, I think fines and sanctions and the changes of law that government are going to put in place.
So you think, sorry to interrupt you, but you think monetary fines, you think maybe sanctions in terms of like transfer bans. Is that what you're alluding to?
I don't. When I say sanctions, I'm more talking about the government or an independent review commission coming in to effectively maybe place penalties on these clubs in regard to maybe not transfer bans, but what they could potentially spend. And also, there just needs to be new laws put in place about how these clubs can operate as conglomerates effectively. And I think, it's complicated because can the Premier League penalise them? Yes. Are the Premier League penalties going to work? Potentially. Is the government going to? Seemingly so. They're the ones that have to come down with the full weight, I think.
How about you, Craig? What do you think? Should these clubs be penalised?
So me and you had a brief discussion this morning, Jay, and I feel like we were on different pages. You were kind of implying that you believe that there should be penalties in terms of point deductions, and I was implying that there should be, or I was suggesting that it should be heavy fines to affect the pockets and bottom line of these owners and executives. I've come around to it. I'm like, as much as points deductions would affect fans and affect players who had nothing to do with these decisions, there has to be a resentment from fans and players towards these clubs to make them really feel the burden of what they've done.
Exactly.
And so if it results in Chelsea or Man United or Spurs or Arsenal not being in Europe for a year, so be it. They didn't want to be in the Champions League anyway.
Exactly.
If that affects them for a year, and if it's a 15-point deduction and none of us are in the Champions League anymore, that should
fully
be
deserved.
It's fully deserved, and I know the play. It's not fair.
I just feel for the players,
But when clubs go into administration and they're then deducted 15 points when in the Championship, that's nothing to do with the players. But those players are still fighting relegation that season. If you look at Sheffield Wednesday,
true
Championship. So it's not fair on the players. And Jamie, I'm totally taking this point from you because you were saying this morning. So
I was literally I went away, looked up a load of things, and I was going to talk exactly about what you're saying. I also wanted to allude a little bit more on why, because we had a conversation earlier on the phone. First thing we did when we woke up, and you said that we both agreed that monetary fines is probably the most likely source of punishment, and it's going to be incredibly unlikely that points deductions will come in. The problem I have with just monetary fines is that it's not good. Although it may hit these owners, these oligarchs, these imposters on our game, who are just, have outright, committed atrocities on football in the last 48 hours, right? The problem I have that when you give monetary fines to these people, it doesn't affect these people, because in the last year, like, just to draw back what you said, Daniel Levy tried putting all of his staff on furlough. Arsenal tried putting all their staff on furlough. Arsenal have let staff go through a pandemic. Liverpool have tried putting all their staff in a pandemic on a furlough. When you give monetary fines to these clubs, do you think that they're going to take the fine themselves, or do you not think that it's just going to be business restructuring? It'll be more people in these football clubs losing.
They'll offset that debt.
The debts will be offset. Monetary fines will not hit these people where it happens, right? The only way that you affect these football clubs, right? And I know it's a delicate line between not attacking the fans, but inadvertently, when you deduct points from a football club, you're affecting everyone in that football club, whether that encompasses the players, the staff, the board, the fans that follow that football club. But unfortunately, that's the only real way that you can actually set a lasting example, you know? And, you know, if I'm honest, like no one wants to see a Champions League, like, you know, regardless. So I'm a West Ham fan. I've got bias in this, but no one wants to see a Champions League without the 12 best teams in Europe, you know, like bar PSG and Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund, bar those teams. Like you don't want to see a Champions League without Real Madrid or Barcelona. You don't want to see it like a Champions League without Chelsea, United, all the top clubs in the country. They're there for a reason. They're established football clubs. You don't want to see these things. But 2 days ago, the Premier League came out and you know, we're against this idea of the European Super League. UEFA came out in the European Super League. None of these big 6 clubs in the Premier League came out. All they did is on Sunday evening, they all in unison put out statements saying they're going to be leaving the Premier League. They shat on 150 years worth of history. They shat on every single fan, every single person that saves up money. You know, football's a working class game traditionally. Do you know how expensive it is for tickets? People spend thousands of pounds to like. There's a 7 or 8 year waiting list for Chelsea's season tickets right now, right, Quakes? People spend thousands of pounds. This is,
I think
people. You can't. This can't be brushed under the under the carpet with a monetary fine that's just going to be offset, and more staff will lose their jobs. It needs to be serious. There needs to be serious deterrence here, because otherwise it's just going to offset the problem even further. Because like you said, peacetime. We'll come back in 5 years with bigger tanks, bigger guns. And what are the Premier League going to do then? Reform is needed on both sides, big time.
Yeah, for sure.
Reform is needed on both sides. The Premier League and UEFA have been you know, in the last few days, for anyone that doesn't know anything about politics within football, just go look at the history of the, FIFA over the last 10 years.
Yeah, awful.
Football is blighted with all sorts of controversies, all sorts of crimes. You know, like I'm not trying to say that the Premier League here or UEFA are innocent. There needs to be reform on both sides, but to just give a monetary fine in this instance is almost as abhorrent as leaving it in the first place. I just can't. That doesn't sit well for me. And this might sit. And I know I'm going off on a tangent here. This might look like I'm a West Ham fan just trying to capitalize on the teams above me, but this is a guy that is so passionate about football that the first thing I do in the morning is look up football scores. One of the last things I do before bed is every single day is I look at football news. I started a football podcast with my best friend who I've spoke about football for the last 25 years. I played football from the age of 4 years old. I've supported West Ham. I've been to so many games in my life. You know, like football is the lifeblood of so many friendships, so many families, so many things in this country, that this abhorrent act cannot be allowed to just happen, and then they can't just walk off into the sunset as if it's nothing. It can't. It just can't.
I think essentially, I mean, you've kind of outlined it there, Jay. It is a class issue, but we're not talking about, you know, working class, middle class, upper class. This is the elite, the 1%. The 1% taking a grip on what you've just explained is the lifeblood of our culture as a country. And yeah, and I think the funniest thing about it all is what the hardest sanctions will hit is a docking of points, because although all these clubs have just tried to move away from competition is exactly what, you know, it's the thing that makes football. We're not franchises. Graham Souness, bless his heart, was trying to hold back last night on Sky Sports.
Spitting bars. So many bars.
Trying to stay politically correct. He was like, we're not like them. We're not like America. We are different. The traditions and culture we have within our sport, within competition, like I said, within the FA Cup, the oldest cup competition in football. It's so important to friendships, families, how we function as a society. And yeah, ironically, the one thing that all the clubs are trying to move away from competition is the one thing that is really going to affect them and hit them where it hurts. So yeah, you are right. It has to be points, which pains me because I just think about all the players that don't deserve it. Jordan Henderson, bless him.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, can we just shout out Luke Shaw, Jordan Henderson, Daniel Podence, Marcus Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, anyone that came out in a public space and actually spoke about this. Mm-hmm. And even the guys at Sky, even though you can say that Sky are relatively self-serving in this instance, it's because of these people, because of these unified response that this has been overturned. Sorry, carry on, Quakes.
Yeah, there's one thing I'm going to say. Like I echo everything you said, Jamie. You nailed everything. There's not much to contribute to that. The one thing I will say is that the only kind of issue that they're going to have in terms of issuing these like punishments to these clubs is that within the statement of the Super League, they said they're going to run concurrently with the Premier League. So there was no statement about leaving the Premier League. So that's where the only issue is going to have. But
That's
the
political strong arming.
Yeah, it exists. But the Premier League are in a position of strength right now, because if you were to impose these fines or these penalties, where are these clubs going to go right now? In terms of public perception, I know they can come out with tanks or whatever in 5 years, but right now, if you were to impose the penalties, they're going to have to eat them. They're going to have to take them on the chin. So this is the right time to do it. And the Premier League has the power to do it right now. And although these clubs are members, this is a membership and they can choose to not be members anymore, this is the right time to do it because they've got nowhere else to go. So these penalties need to be enforced ASAP. And I think Ceferin made a misstep, Alexander Ceferin, who's the head of UEFA, when he welcomed back Man City with open arms straight away as soon as they announced they're leaving, because you've got to make these clubs realise that it's not okay. And of course, UEFA need Man City, they need Chelsea, they need Man United, they need all these teams to be in the Champions League to make the competition what it is, and they are part of the history of the Champions League. They also have to feel the burden and feel the power of these organisations, because what they try to do right now is treason. It's unreal, and like you said, Jay, like they need to come down as hard as possible. And Lou, you touched on the fact that it's not the players, so it's not, and we all agree on that.
Feel for them, but
they
also are players that benefit from playing for massive clubs that have loads of money. They're on higher wages than the rest of the rest of the sport. So when push comes to shove, this has been a money grab. You're going to have to eat it competitively, which you didn't want to do. It's the hypocrisy, the hypocrisy.
And the thing is, those clubs have been out of the Champions League for a season. They're going to be in the Champions League next season. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a season.
Not Arsenal, not Tottenham.
yeah.
Also, can we just have a conversation about the fact that, still going back to it, although we've done the U-turn, Shakhtar, Schalke, Marseille, Benfica, Malaga, Porto, Monaco, Sevilla, Roma, Ajax, Lyon, Leicester, clubs with tradition, incredible clubs, all gone further in the Champions League than Arsenal in the last 10 years.
Leicester have won the bloody league in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Leicester are currently in the Premier League.
We were in primary school when the Invincibles happened, and that's the last time Arsenal won the Premier League.
I don't care about Arsenal. I don't know how many times I've got to say on Arsenal are a bunch of mugs. I don't care about Arsenal.
Okay, listen,
I think. Well, no. Essentially, we have got into it, and this is the problem. We're always going to go around in circles because, like everyone across the country, still absolutely reeling from the audacity. But hopefully, like we say, the Independent Reform Committee, Gary Neville, having a very, very strong voice within the footballing community. I feel comfortable within, the hands of someone that understands the ins and outs of it. And I feel like he is going to be a big voice within that regulation. We just all have to use this as an opportunity to move forward and hopefully, get a little bit of control of the game back.
I agree, and that's an excellent place to wrap up the episode. Now, guys, we will be back tomorrow because we're building up the big one. The Champions League matters again, and it's all on this weekend. On Saturday, West Ham take on Chelsea. We are level in the table after Chelsea's draw and West Ham's subsequent loss that we haven't even spoke about last weekend. That's how mad football's been. But as I said, we'll be back tomorrow building up the game, and we'll be recording a live video on Saturday. But in the meantime, Kwaku, where can they find us?
You can find us on Instagram at We Talk Football Podcast, on Twitter at WTF Podcast 90. We're on YouTube. Make sure, I know Jamie puts in a little insert at the beginning of the video, but make sure you like this video and subscribe to We Talk Football Podcast. We are actually seeing the growth in the last few days, so make sure you keep on engaging with our content. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, so make sure you keep your ears peeled and your eyes pierced for new content.
Exactly. Excellent place to
We've
all lost our minds, guys, but football is back, football is here, and the Champions League matters. So we'll catch you tomorrow.
Nice one.
Cheers.